So I can see that you're here. Maud is here. Ushma is here.
Hello.
Hi, Leonard is here.
Here.
Ben Morden.
I'm here.
I think I saw Tom Rockledge popping in and out.
Yes, we have Tom.
And Robin, I see.
Hi, Robin.
Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Let's see if anybody else. I see. Let's see. I see Donalda.
Hello.
Hi, Donalda.
Edward Rosari is present.
Edward Urzari.
I'm here.
Yep. Let's see. Who? Shino, are you here?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. Who am I missing? Myself?
Emily Hellstrom.
Yep.
Emily, are you here?
Eric's not here either.
Eric is here.
Oh, yes, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Hi, Eric. All right.
So we're only missing Emily and Shino at this point.
And the student?
Violet Becker.
Yes.
Violet, are you with us?
Okay, so we're missing Shino and Violet at the moment.
And Emily.
And Emily, sorry. Okay, this is all pretty new, so I guess
I think that suffices as roll call. Well, everyone, welcome for those who are joining us. We have some noise going on. I don't know if that's from me or from someone else.
I think it's from Ed. Ed, I think, are you on a landline or something?
Ed,
Yeah. That worked.
Okay, so we muted Ed for the moment. If you have something pressing to say, type it in the chat and we'll unmute you. Okay, well, everyone, welcome to our first Zoom meeting for CEC2. And we have with us, in addition to the CEC members who were just, oh, and I see Emily is now here too. Hello, Emily.
Hey guys, sorry.
And
Emily.
we have Emily.
Hi.
In addition, we have Michelle Chang from the FACE office, and I want to say thank you to Michelle for setting this up, and we're using the Zoom feature from FACE within the DOE. We also have Donalda Chumney, our superintendent from District 2, here with us this evening, as well as a somewhat mysterious Jennifer Greenblatt, who, who's shrouded in mystery in a dark box, but who is the family leadership coordinator for District 2. So let's get going. I don't think Shino is on yet, but I had talked to Shino.
She is on. She just sent a chat.
But Shino's muted. Somebody needs to unmute
Muted and she
Shino.
doesn't have her camera on.
Okay. Shino, we're going to unmute you because we're going to move to the resolutions next, but you had mentioned something to me about the resolution, so I wanted to turn it over to you, Shino.
Yes, I'd like to table all the resolutions until potentially next month or later.
Okay. I
I
have no objection to that. Does anyone else have any objection to that?
No.
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 Okay. With no objections to that, we will table all of the resolutions until next month. That will bring us right to the first public session. If anyone would like to make a public comment, you just hit your chat feature down at the bottom of the screen and type in add me to the public comment list, or you can even just write public comment list and your name. And we will go one by one to the folks and we will unmute the people who are going to make public comments. And I think, is that Violet? Is Violet here? Yes, Violet is here too. So we are a full house. Wonderful.
Great.
Okay. So don't be shy. This is your big chance to be the first Zoom public comment person. Luke Wolf, to everyone. Hi, please add me to the public comment list. Luke, you are the entirety of the public comment list at this point, so we shall unmute you. Hold on, gotta find you and unmute you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Luke.
My name is Luke Wolf. I am from City Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. First, I just want to say it's good to see everyone seemingly safe and healthy, and I hope that you and your families and your neighbors are all safe and healthy during this trying and new time as well. And shout out to all the staff who helped set up the Zoom call. I know that everyone's transitioning now to this new normal, and it's great to see all these faces again. I just want to talk for a moment about some of the stuff that we've been doing at the Comptroller's office as we all try to make the best of COVID-19 and everything that's thrown our way. So really, since the early days of the crisis, we have been focusing on our school system and how to make sure the school system and the whole DOE can adjust and stay as resilient as we can to the pandemic. So very early on, we called for the schools to close, and then once that step was actually taken, we amended all the city regulations to make it possible for the DOE to purchase laptops for students to take home. Prior to that, there was no technology students were allowed to take home purchased by the DOE, so our amended regulation was able to put the process in order for the now hopefully soon hundreds of thousands of devices to end up in students' hands to enable them to learn at home. I also want to say the Comptroller has been going through this as well himself. He has 2 elementary school students at home who are now going on to Google Classroom and Zoom and all of the new features that the teachers are rolling out. And do want to give a big shout out to the teachers and staff and administration, everyone who has made such a quick turnaround and made it possible for so many students to learn from home. I know there's still a lot more work to do on that, but it is inspiring to see how much work and effort has gone into making that possible even in these first few days. This week, we're really focusing on making sure that all the frontline workers have all the resources that they need. So today we called for an entire package of policies to be passed to help support a lot of those frontline workers, which goes from everything from transportation to housing to healthcare to making sure that they have whatever subsidies they need to continue living their lives as they protect and support us and our families and our kids in these coming weeks. I know I've been sending emails to some of the CEC members recently, but I just want to make sure that you and everyone else on the call know that our office is available. I'll drop my email in the chat for anything else that you might need, and look forward to working together on this going forward as well.
Great, thank you. Lila, let me unmute you. Unmute.
Okay. Hi, how are you? My name is Lila Mejia. I am from the Offices of the Public Advocate of New York City, Jumani Williams. I have been sending out information to a lot of the CECs. I'm also a member of a CEC 1 in the Lower East Side. This is my first time speaking with the CEC 2, even though I've attended some of your meetings in the past, and I'm just here to listen, try to see the issues that are going on for your district and District 2, and just trying to be as supportive as possible. Next couple of weeks, we're trying to have some virtual town hall meetings for parents in regards to education and just better communication. We're looking to have a student town hall and a town hall for parents. So I'll keep you guys posted, and thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. So we are, right now, we don't have more public comments, but I want to give everyone an opportunity. If you are, Hector, do you want to make a public comment, Hector? Let me find you. There is now 77 of us, so that's a good number. Oh,
Hector, you're unmuted.
Okay, great. Hector,
Hi. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well in these trying times here. My name is Hector Vasquez. I'm a member of Community Board 4, and I'm also on the LHLC Houses Tennis Association. Basically, I'm here today to, hear about your organization a little bit more, and also to voice my opinion on the issues we've been having with these school meals to go in our community here that were shut down temporarily at the beginning of this week, leaving a lot of children in our communities for LHLC houses and the Fulton houses, and also our neighborhood that were left high and dry without any meals. And most of these centers for distribution were moved to the east side. So this caused a lot of issues and, you know, a bunch of hardships for a lot of people that are actually having issues getting food now because of the, you know, problems we're having with food being stocked properly in the stores and access to real food. And, you know, every little bit helps. And this was kind of a big hit for our community for a little while. Thankfully, I contacted Corey Johnson's office and a few other members in Community Board 4, and we were able to get it at least back to PS 11, but PS 33 for whatever reason was left out in the cold for whatever reason. And most of the other distribution centers were not of decent distance to our communities here. Most of them were on the east side, which was a greater risk to our children and families when they just went there to get a meal. That's why I'm here today.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's something we're going to talk about. We have Senator Hoylman here with us. Senator Hoylman, would you like to say hello to folks?
Sure. Thanks, Maude, and thanks everyone. I don't know about you, but my laptop is like about to burst into flames. It's so warm because I've been doing so many Zoom meetings today. But it's a very efficient way to get work done. So it's great to see everyone. Wanted to thank you for the work you've been doing on dyslexia, and I wanted you to know that I've introduced legislation with Assembly Member Robert Carroll, who himself is dyslexic, and it would establish a task force, which we think is the first of its kind in the state at the state level, to look at strategies to address the fact that kids are not being screened, as we all know, and learning as a parent, as my husband and I did, that your child is dyslexic is an incredibly daunting and frightening process. So we hope to make some headway, although that ties into my second point, which is the budget, which is now under consideration. $180 billion. If we were a nation, New York State would, have the 5th largest GDP in the world. Yet we still are struggling with foundation aid, as you've heard me and my colleagues say over and over again, and what the city is owed through the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, billions of dollars shortchanging our students and our teachers and administrators. I don't know if this is the budget where we're going to make any headway, and that's the sad reality, because of the $7 billion hole that we've already learned about from the state controller due to tax revenues falling during this pandemic, and the crisis that we have faced and that we're beginning to confront with so many people losing their jobs, 80,000 unemployment filings just today alone in New York State. So we have a real crisis at hand. We're going to try to protect everything we have in terms of student funding, but we are in an extreme defensive posture as city elected representatives, and confronting this budget, hell. Of course, we're not even in Albany because of the pandemic. We might be voting virtually, but I wanted to let you know that we're staying on top of it. Things are very confusing. It's a fluid situation, but I really want to hear your feedback tonight. I'm curious to know how the virtual learning is going for folks. I would say from my vantage point, my husband and I, it's week 1. So my daughter's attention to it, I would say, is mixed. But all things considered, I think the team at my daughter's school is doing a really good job. But I know there are challenges, technology challenges with so many family. Something like 25% of families with children don't even have access to Wi-Fi in New York City. So I want to hear feedback on this and see how I can be helpful moving forward. And just a couple of other things. I'm working on legislation to ban Price gouging, I know a lot of us have experienced that over the last couple of weeks, but also the government's being price gouged when it comes to purchasing, personal protective equipment by suppliers all across the nation and the world. I'm working with the governor's office on, ending, and we successfully fought to make certain that renters were not going to be evicted during this time, and there's a moratorium on foreclosures. I work with Senator Kavanaugh on that front. The governor announced that a few days ago. And I'm fighting at the moment to make certain that we have a pause on statutes of limitation when it comes to criminal and civil matters. I'm the chair of the Judiciary Committee, so that's an issue I take very seriously. But just wanted to say thanks. I'll be listening. I have my colleagues, Caroline and Caroline Wexelbaum is on the line, along with Kendall Jacobson from my Albany staff. I'll leave it at that, though. Happy to answer questions, but thanks so much for everything you're doing.
You're on mute, Maud.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much, Senator Hoylman.
I was hoping that I wasn't speaking and you couldn't hear me that whole time.
No, we heard every word. At least I did. I have little ones running around in the back, so I muted myself. So we have, for those of you, we're now over 80 participants at our meeting. We should have Zoom meetings more often because we seem to have great turnout. And so for anyone who has joined recently, if you check out the chat bar at the bottom of your screen, you will see that that we're in the midst of our first public session, and you can type in public session or type in your name, and we will unmute you, and you can ask a question, you can give a comment, give some update. You have the floor. So if you'd like to make a public comment, you can type add me to the public comment list and write your name. And right now, we have, Shino says we have hands raised. Shino, why don't you?
We have Patricia and Daniel's hands raised. So, I mean, it might have been done on accident, or they might have questions, so I'll unmute them.
All right.
Okay, Patricia, you're first.
Hi, thank you. Patricia Larry from Community Board 2. And I just wanted to thank Donalda Chemley and the DOE, as well as Luke Wolf from Scott Stringer's office and Eric Botcher from Corey's office for rapidly getting PS11 online to get those kids those meals. I also wanted to find out more about devices and Wi-Fi at homeless shelters. I've been hearing a little chatter about that and what is being done about that. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
And who was the other hand? Thank you, Patricia. And why don't we take the other question, and then maybe we can answer them at the same time. Who was the other question?
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daniel Garcia McGuire. I'm the Deputy Public Advocate for Education and Opportunity. I'm getting used to this Zoom thing, so apologies. Yeah, just wanted to say hello from the Public Advocate's office. Lila and I are here to just make sure everyone knows that we're working essentially to hold the DOE accountable on technology distribution and or the lack thereof, and make sure that our neediest communities are receiving that tech and receiving it in a timely manner. Yeah, we're also, as Lila mentioned, going to be hosting some virtual town halls centering around student voices and then parent and educational leaders after that. And we're going to try to do that on a rolling basis to kind of create more structure around this remote learning period or situation that we find ourselves in. And yeah, we're looking at better ways to distribute food more equitably to parents that are now full-time teachers and very well may not be able to get out to those meal distribution sites. And also just very curious and excited to learn about how the parent experience is going with remote learning. And yeah, excited to listen in and learn more.
Fantastic, thank you. Donalda, do you want to address Patricia's question if you have any information about Wi-Fi in the homeless shelters?
Sure. The DOE has procured over 300,000 tablets for kids, and those devices are web enabled. For 2 of our largest hotel temporary housing facility shelters, we were able to have the Wi-Fi turned on and students to be able to access it. The hotel on 7th Avenue and another very, very large hotel shelter facility. For all the other students who currently do not have that technology, the tech is being shipped directly to the students' families, and our Students in Temporary Housing Liaison, Iris Gersten, who's been wonderful, is working with the staff at those hotels and shelters to make sure that the technology is appropriately distributed to the recipients that it's intended for. In addition to that, that distribution began yesterday, and we've said that at the latest, students will receive it by Monday. And so our school leaders are keeping very close tabs on which students have technology already that is loaned to them through the school, and which students, like parent coordinators, have been reaching out last week and all weekend to make sure that parents were familiar with the link that the city provided to be able to request technology for their kids. And in many cases, parent coordinators supported families with filling that web form out so that children would have access to the tech sooner rather than later. And so by Monday, we should have all students equipped with the technology.
Great, fantastic. And I think everyone can see this in the chat, but Senator Hoylman's office has posted in the chat 2 different comprehensive resource guides that, if I'm understanding this correctly, everybody can see. And so that's an additional resource for folks.
Thank you.
Great. And let's see. So this is still our public session. If anyone else has questions or comments or wants to talk about something, there's a second public session later on, which we'll move on to. But if anyone has anything to say now.
Maud, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I don't know where it fits in, but it's just 2 people mentioned that PS11 was set up as a food site, but it's not accessible. It's not an accessible building, like even the first floor. So I don't know if that's something that's if we're gonna talk about food more later, and it can wait till then to understand if there's other options on the west side, if people have accessibility issues, or if that's something that we can talk about now.
Well, we can certainly talk about it now. Some of the requests that came in terms of the West Side corridor and not having enough sites there mentioned PS11 and PS33 as sites. I think PS33 is accessible off the top of my head.
It is.
Yeah, that's what I remember. And so that would be a good site. We can certainly follow up, you know, our CEC if there's any particular reason why 33 wasn't chosen. It's also, you know, the Fulton houses and the Elliott houses, which were locations where you would want to be able to make it accessible for families to walk to pick up food, would benefit from having both of those options. You know, this came up last week, and the DOE was able to add PS11 relatively quickly, which is a good thing. But I think adding PS33, it seems that the ability to add sites and adjust that distribution list is ongoing. So I think that's something we could advocate for.
Well, can I just interject? At some point, is there going to be an analysis of how many meals were picked up from different schools to figure out whether or not we are targeting the right neighborhoods?
It's my understanding, I'll let Donalda address it, but it's my understanding that the DOE has that. I saw something that some sites were actually fairly light and some getting much more traffic. But Donalda, do you want to address that?
Yes, we've been told that the regional enrichment center sites, which are the child care provision sites for first responders and healthcare professionals, as well as the grab and go sites, are continually, the usage of those services is continually reviewed to make sure that the services are optimized. And so if a site is low on distribution, then that they are reconsidered. And I have to say that, you know, from the time that Councilmember Johnson's office began advocacy for PS11, and various folks from Community Board 2 and Community Board 4 began that advocacy until it was open for business was about 24 to 36 hours. And so if there is a need for additional sites, or we would like to look at data, I can request it so that you all can make some community advocacy considerations and move forward with asking the DOE to make some adjustments.
Robin, do you think that PS33 is the other appropriate site, or is there a different school you had in mind?
I mean, if accessibility to Elliott and Fulton is a priority, I think 33 makes a lot of sense. My only concern is just, you know, having been a parent there for so long, I know that those, you know, there's no elevator, there's no lift. So if anyone that has any physical disabilities, that would make it steps hard. That's always been like a challenge at the school. Like even the first floor, like in some schools, just getting to the first floor is okay, but that's a problem. So I would just, you know, it seems like there should be an ADA compliant site on the west side. That's all.
I know that, I mean, PS41, which is my kid's school, was a distribution site. I'd be interested to see the numbers, because it seemed when I went there the week before, on Friday, the week that remote learning hadn't started, last week, on Friday, to pick up a device, in fact, for one of my children, they had the grab and go meals set out. I mean, I was there for a very short time, but it was very light, but there was somebody staffing it, so they could even step outside. I don't know if that's what they're doing in PS11, but you know, I think it would make sense to close sites that are not getting much traffic and open them or transfer them if there's, you know, if there's X number of sites that they're able to support.
Agreed. The two that I've walked by have had almost no one going in and out of them.
Right. So Donalda, maybe we can follow up with you in terms of the data and trying to help the DOE pick the sites that are most likely to get foot traffic.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have anyone else for the first public session?
Hector has his hand up.
Why am I not seeing these hands? Oh, Hector. Okay. I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Hi, thanks for letting me talk again. I actually live right next to PS33, and it is wheelchair accessible. They have a ramp, and the meals are usually served in the front, so there's no real access within the building, from what my children have told me. And basically, yeah, it was high traffic activity, and they were active last week, all of last week, up until Monday. And when my children went, along with a bunch of other neighborhood children, I got reports back that it was closed. There was no signs or anything. There was just a janitor at the door, just letting everybody know, you know, it's done. We're not doing it here anymore, that kind of thing. So that's when I got on the horn with Eric Botcher from Corey Johnson's office. And that's why we got such a quick turnaround, thank goodness, on this, to get at least PS11 up and running, which was already running, I believe, at the same time. So that's it in a nutshell for that.
Right. No, I understand that it was your advocacy got PS11 open because it had not been on the original list. So thank you, actually, Hector, for that advocacy, because that PS11 was added because of that advocacy, as well as other members of the CEC who joined in. So let us, if we don't.
Maud, if I may, I just have a quick request to Donalda. So some of the things I've heard from families, not in District 2, but citywide, is this access to internet. The carriers that are offering free internet services, some of them require paying off the remaining balances, which some families cannot do, or provide a credit card, which some families do not have. So those are things that I would like us to watch out for. And at one point, it may be actually necessary for the DOE to negotiate portable Wi-Fi routers rather than asking the internet providers to come in and install anything. that might, because some of the cellular service providers are providing data on the cellular service. So that might be something that we might look into if we start hearing that a lot of families are having a hard time getting on the internet or getting service.
Thank you, Sheena.
Okay. Let's move forward. If there are no more public comments, I'm looking at the chat bar to see if anybody else has something to say. And I do not see more comments. So we will move to the superintendent's report.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's good to be with you. It's really strange. If anybody would have told me that I would be doing one of these from my kitchen, I would have laughed a month ago. This has really been quite the turn of events for us all. And I know, you know, for the kids especially, this is really a big, big transition. And so thank you so much for being here tonight and for your patience and with each other and with all our school staff and teachers and, you know, just the people that we're all working together to make the best of a tough situation. And I know that you all are on that team too. So thank you for that. We have transitioned to online learning. And as I wrote to you all in my letter about a week ago, you know, for decades, we've been, as educators, trying to find authentic, engaging ways to incorporate technology into the classroom and really ensure that kids get a 21st century education, and all within the matter of, you know, a week or 2 weeks time. You know, necessity is really the mother of invention, because teachers have done an extraordinary amount of work to make their lessons and their time with kids meaningful, to do outreach to them every day, to make sure that the tasks they design are at a level that kids can complete independently or with a little bit of group, peer, or adult assistance. And it's been quite a transition for us. All of our schools at this point have many of them, most of their work online, and we are working closely with several of our schools that are working to get their classrooms online. And so that's something that we're going to be doing as a professional development initiative now and in the weeks ahead, and just to ensure that kids have an equitable experience throughout the district. The parents have been very, very supportive thus far. It will not surprise you at all to hear that there's a gamut of opinions about what types of remote instruction are most beneficial for kids. Some people say, you know, I'd really just rather you post the lessons and my child can do it at their own pace during the time that we have, you know, because our family has multiple children, we're all sharing a device. And then other parents have written in and said, I just don't understand why you're not instructing live 5 hours a day. So of course, right? Just as with everything, there are different ideas about how to do this really well. But one thing that has emerged for me to be a really strong piece of, one thing that has emerged as new knowledge for me that is very helpful, and I will share it with you all, is that the principals are finding that the best results in online learning are coming when teachers provide lessons that are pre-recorded and then group students thoughtfully and strategically with one another to support each other's learning in the task and then check in with those kids. So having the interactive time with the teacher be in the service of the learning task, as opposed to having the interactive time be with the teacher as the teacher is explaining the content. That's a shift that we're making with kids and families, and it's paying off in terms of student learning and transition this week. Our kids are really hungry for connection, as you all know. I mean, we all miss our colleagues and friends and daily interactions with them. And imagine being a teenager, 12-year-old, and you know, not only staying your family. Principals are reporting that when they visit classrooms, kids are in many ways more actively engaged and contributing than they are in person. And this change of medium has in many ways emboldened students who typically don't share as much or who aren't as active in their sharing to put themselves out there and reach for connection, which is pretty cool. So as I said in my previous communication, I don't think that any of this, none of this learning will be lost, and we will go back to a very different and very enriched technology experience compared to the one we left 2 weeks ago in terms of schooling. And I'm very excited about what that offers for kids in the future. I'm also really thrilled for teachers because they're working so hard, and the level of creativity and genuine motivation to really get this right for the kids is really beautiful to watch. So our team has been working closely with principals this week and, well, forever, but especially in the past 2 weeks. Our main goal this week with them is conversation around making sure that we have checked in with every child, and making sure that when we're visiting classrooms, when we're visiting these virtual classrooms online, that we're gauging students' participation throughout and making sure that kids have equitable opportunities to participate and that kids are participating equitably equally with the same level of engagement and output that we would expect in an in-person experience. And by and large, in the schools that we've spoken with, there are only a handful of students who we have yet to observe in the learning process. By and large, the vast majority, I would say 99% of kids have checked in. There are only a handful of students that we are still expecting to check in. And it could be because some folks went out of state, if for our pre-K grades, for example, some parents are opting out of this structure altogether. It really varies by the family's circumstance, but the teachers have given special care to knowing that if a child did not have a device, did not leave school with the device that was distributed to them in the past 3 weeks from the school, that whatever connection that they have has to be through most likely a cell phone. So the task is designed to be able to be completed via cell phone. Teachers are reaching out, guidance counselors, school administrators are reaching out to kids and families on the phone to make connections and make sure that when those devices arrive in the hands of those students and parents, that they're fully ready to go. So next week, our team enlarges our focus to work to reach out to families. Now, Jennifer and Tina, our family leadership coordinator and family support coordinator, have done a tremendous amount of work around attendance and outreach and technology access and making sure that people have devices. But what I mean next week, our team focuses on family outreach. I want to clarify that and say that school leaders are putting together surveys of their parent bodies to figure out how parents are experiencing this transition, and to see how we as schools, as school leaders, as classroom teachers can be more supportive of the demands that parents are facing in their own work lives and their work and parenting to support their kids in their learning. Within the context of the school day, teachers design instruction to be at an instructional level, meaning that we want kids to be challenged and we want content to be new, and we want to invite their active thinking and their use of prior knowledge. And we know that designing instruction for kids who are at home has to be on a more independent level. And so that means in many ways, it's difficult to design for a range of learners already, but imagine designing for a range of learners who are not with you and don't necessarily have access to you as a teacher all the time. Is really, really tough. And so we were seeking parent feedback around the structure of these lessons, the learning tasks, the schedule of due dates, the form in which the work is required, just to make sure that everything from the most technical aspect to the larger sort of human behavior adjustment that's required to switch to this medium, that we're supporting families through it. And so I received a few drafts of those surveys today from the middle school principals, and you'll be seeing those as parents in the coming weeks. many parents have already reached out to share their opinions and thoughts, as I mentioned earlier, but this is a more structured way that we'll have, and I'll be able to share back with you all the next time that we see each other. We have 21 grab-and-go food sites within our district, and that counts elementary and middle schools as well as high school sites. And so they are they're everywhere. And if they need to be in a different place than where they are, you know, we're open to that. Just please let me know, and we can work in the same way that you all made such quick work of it previously. We can do that again. For the most, from what I have not observed one of these sites, so I just want to say that. But I want to tell you that of the things that I have read in terms of the guidelines, the folks don't enter the school and pick up the food. The food is distributed outside. So that's the way that our custodial teams had preferred that things happen, so that we could just make sure that we were practicing as much social distancing as possible. And so that's the format of the distribution. I recall that on the last message that I saw from some folks who were advocating, I think that it was Shino and Josephine Ishman from Community Board 4, we were talking about, or you all had mentioned that some of the lunches were repetitive, that it was a breakfast and 2 lunches, and that the lunches were the same lunches as, like, they were, you know, there are 2 meals offered, but if they're exactly the same, is that really in the spirit of what the city is promising for folks? And I raised that concern to our executive superintendent, who told me that she would escalate that and we would hear back. So I'm waiting to hear back. If we don't within the next couple of days, I would like for us to all follow up on a message together. We have 3 regional enrichment centers, and those enrichment centers are childcare facilities that run from about 7 o'clock in the morning to 6:30 in the evening for healthcare professionals and first responders. And our 3 centers for District 2 are at PS 89, which is on the West Side Highway, PS 158, which is on the Upper East Side on York Avenue, and our pre-K center at East 76th Street, which is between, I think, 2nd and 3rd. It might be 1st and 2nd. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. So those are our 3 sites. And yesterday, our team, Mary Ann, our deputy, gave me some information that there were 28 students in attendance at PS 158. That site is supervised right now by 2 of our principals who do the morning and afternoon shift. And that site with the 28 students was among the most trafficked site in the city. So these regional enrichment centers are not getting a lot of folks to come to them, a lot of kids to come to them. Children are there in small groups. They're supervised by teachers and school leaders, people with that background, and they do educational activities and receive supports, but that's the status of those at the moment. So about the technology distribution, our schools saw this, in many ways saw this coming, and wanted to make sure that they distributed their laptops and tablets first priority to kids who didn't have them at home. And they began doing so about 3 weeks ago. And so, for example, one of our middle schools, 177, which is on the Upper East Side, it shares a building with PS 158, they transitioned to online learning just due to the number of students who were absent in their building 2 weeks ago. And every child has a device. We have many schools where every child has a device, either because their families already have them or because the school signed them out via a equipment loan form that the DOE has on file. We were able to get that equipment loan form translated so that parents could see what they were signing, which essentially is an agreement to say, I'm going to use this device and I'm going to keep it in my possession, and then I will return it if asked to do so, or when asked to do so by the school leader. And so within most of our schools, we're now in the single digits of kids that don't have devices. And every child, whether they live in temporary housing or have a demonstrated economic need or not, is welcome to fill out the city form for a wireless enabled tablet to be sent to their home address. And so those are home delivery. For our largest schools, meaning Wagner and Baruch, there are about, the number of kids who need devices is in the teens at this point, but it is not above 20. And those students are known and they are waiting on their devices to be delivered to them. The one place where we have a hang up in the system, Marianne brought to my attention earlier this morning, is we have some parents who are reticent to give their home addresses because of their immigration status. And those school leaders know who those families are and have reached out to ask if we can provide the devices to them and that they can be part of that delivery. And so that the school leaders that are involved are our Chinatown school leaders. And so we're working that out with our central distribution team to make sure that we can make that happen. But that's the one wrinkle in the home delivery plan. Let's see. So Chino, I wrote down your note about when is the time that we negotiate the portable routers. I think that, I mean, I can follow up on it, but I think what Central would say is let's get those kids web-enabled devices or on the list for web-enabled devices. And that might be less expensive than the router, but I'm not sure. I will ask. I will follow up. Let's see. I want to say two less things. One, we're paying close attention to students who have special learning needs, and the special education provision, the services, meaning special education teacher support services, the SETS model, as well as the integrated co-teaching work, and that with kids who receive the support of paraprofessionals is very, it's complex to work out how kids will receive services that we have figured out ways to seamlessly provide in the context of a classroom, providing them virtually and having teachers work together in a classroom and having the kids receive the time allotment for, say, occupational therapy or counseling requires us an extra set of steps around signing some paperwork specifically for occupational therapy or for counseling so that those folks can work together in a teletherapeutic model. The DOE has negotiated, legal has worked that out, and parents are signing those documents and moving through that. The special education piece is one that's actively underway. A lot of our schools have figured out ways to deliver those services right now, and other schools are working out ways that it will happen. It's a top priority. One of the other big priorities is around kids that we know who are living in homes with where substance abuse is an active dynamic, and making sure that students have the support they need, whether through a SAPIS worker, which is a substance abuse prevention worker, or another professional. And then finally, I wanted to say something about school supplies for kids in temporary housing, because I know that the CEC is always talking about ways to spend its budget. And previously we had talked about attendance supports, and I thought that was a really great, I'm going to turn on a light because I think it was getting dark in there. Previously we talked about attendance supports, but I was thinking, there are a lot of families who have reached out and said that they're struggling to get basic school supplies for their kids. And if it would be possible for you all to consider providing some school supplies and having them be dropped off at our hotels and temporary housing facilities for kids who don't have them, being that our schools are having difficulty getting supplies. We can't go to schools anymore because of this virus, if that makes sense. So that I want to just put that out there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Donalda. Okay, I don't see any comments on the chat.
I have a question, Maud, if you don't mind. Hi, Donalda. How many 3D printers do we have in our schools, and have the efficacy of 3D printed ventilators been looked into by the DOE? And if so, can we start printing these ventilators to save lives?
Maybe that's a question for Ushma and not Donalda. Let's throw it to Ushma. And
Sure.
Donalda, you're still on mute. You've muted yourself, I think.
So my only feedback there is one that I think I had voiced before, which is that many of the hospitals choose to source their ventilators from specific manufacturers so that it works with the current equipment that they already have in place. So if you can get a contact at a specific hospital that is looking for ventilators and is willing to take them without having being tested from being produced by a GMP quality facility, et cetera, then yes, absolutely go for it, but don't move forward with that entire effort without already having a contact that knows that they would accept such a device.
Okay.
Hey,
Oh, I had-
it's a worthy effort. We love engineers. We love people that are willing to put this kind of effort into something, but it would be a real shame to put forward that amount of effort without knowing that a hospital would take it on the other side.
That's
Having
even
said that, who
if
knows
they don't
what
have
will
any.
happen in the-
I mean, if we're short by how much the governor says, you would say that nothing would be better than something.
Shino, was that something you wanted to say?
Yes, Hector has a hand up.
Hector?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I had a
Hector,
question.
can you
Donalda.
hold, we can be more casual since we don't have more folks, but Hector, if you want to, we'll do a 1.5 public session. Go ahead, Hector. Oh, wait, I have to unmute you. Sorry about that. Hold on. Okay,
Hi.
go.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a brief comment about what Donalda had mentioned earlier about the conference calls and the video conferencing that's being done between the students and the schools and the teachers. Like most of you who are parents, you've experienced this already, and I think it's pretty well done so far. And they're still filling the system out, how to organize it, how to implement it, especially with the hardware side. I understand not everybody has the technology. But briefly, my feelings on it is that it's not just about the lesson planning, it's actually the social interaction between the kids and their teachers and also their fellow students. I know my daughter, I have a 12-year-old, and honestly, she has her moments like anybody else. And, obviously this has been a big change for her and my other son as well. And, she's been dealing with it in her own way, in a quiet way. But I also see the difference that when she's on these conference calls and she's on these video chats with her friends. So it's also a matter of the mental state of our kids as well, and trying to make them feel better about the situation. I mean, it's good to make them aware of what's happening, and maybe some parents will say, hey, we'll shield them from what's happening. But I think most importantly, they need that peer support. And I think it goes a long way, because honestly, I see the way my daughter lights up when she's talking to her friends on a regular basis, whether it be Google Chat or Zoom or whatever technology they can get. And I've spoken at length with the guidance counselors. My daughter goes to Clinton, and they've really got their act together. And Principal Levine has been awesome over there with implementing a lot of the stuff. And they've factored that in as well. They've had discussions that, hey, this is a work in progress, and hopefully by next week we'll have a more structured learning program where they will implement classes, because I know that was mentioned earlier that some parents are for a more structured format. And so in the next week or two, hopefully they will be implementing classes like on a regular schedule, maybe not as broad as we had it while they were in class in real time, but something similar to it. So it is a work in progress. And like I said, it's not just about the schooling and the education side of it. It's a social interaction, which I think is really, really important and vital to our kids in this in this present time. It's all about their state of mind. And the more interaction they have with their friends, and they discuss things and and chat and do little projects. I mean, Clinton has actually even implemented these clubs, these mini clubs, which I thought was pretty neat. My daughter came up with a knitting club, and there's some other ones on Netflix clubs, Hulu clubs, anything. And they actually get together and they set aside a time where it would be via Zoom or Google Meeting, and they actually have these little groups that get together at a certain set time, or they just have lunch together. So it's all about the interaction as well, because honestly, I'm afraid that what's happening here is not going to end very quickly. We're going to be here for a couple of weeks, hopefully at the least, at best. But, possibly it might go through the summer as well. We don't know at this point, obviously.
Hector,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Hector,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I just wanted to let you know that someone wrote to me on the chat that they agree with you about the importance of not just focusing on academics and the importance of the social interaction that our kids are getting the way we are right now, but through those contacts. So you have some folks agreeing with you.
Yeah.
We are, for anyone else who wants to ask questions or have a comment, thank you for that, Hector. But we do have a second public session that will come up. We'll try to go with the agenda so that this is as like a regular meeting as we would normally have, because as you say, Hector, this may be our new normal for a long time.
Thank you for letting me talk. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Hector. I appreciate it.
Maud, I wanted to ask Donalda a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So, Donalda, it's my understanding, and I read an article this afternoon that there's a discussion right now because of the low attendance levels at some of these resource centers of actually opening them up to an additional population of students. So I'm not sure if you heard about that yet, but my question is, if that does become more available, in other words, if they do open it up, and I know they sent out original questionnaires to vet and see who is eligible for those spots, will that be publicized? And if so, maybe there can be a discussion about having some of our kids, obviously I'm concerned about safety and health procedures, but of having some of our kids go to those centers, even if it's for an hour or two, because I think what they're lacking, especially what's been going on for the last week, is just the structure. And the lack of structure is one of the things that I personally, as a parent, find the most difficult about this process, that the adjustment to this online learning, the lack of structure and getting someone to actually do something. So I think it might even be helpful, even for a parent's mental health, to have our kids, or some of our kids, even if they went to the school. I'm talking about my second grader in particular. My oldest children are fine, but my second grader, even if it was to come to the school to see their teachers, even if a small classroom setting, something, whatever it is, if somewhere down the line, even if it was for an hour or an hour and a half, or just something to get some sort of consistency going, I think that might be helpful. But I was wondering if you heard anything about opening it up to additional students. Thank you.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
I haven't heard anything about that. I do know that one of the sites took in four of our one family had 4 kids, and they were a family that was ACS involved, and I think the school leader was concerned about all kinds of aspects of just their own family dynamic in life, and managed to get them access to one of the rec centers, which was a really good thing for those specific children. The only thing is that I'm thinking in terms of a larger city. I don't know if that as a solution is scalable. I don't know more about it, but I will put it in my notes to find out for you all.
Thank you.
Can I add a quick thing there? Because one of the things you mentioned is that some of the rec centers are right next to what we call Bedpan Alley, of where all of the hospitals are along York on the Upper East Side. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've been involved in at Memorial Sloan Kettering and Weill Cornell is deploying all of our graduate students and postdoctoral scientists, now that our labs are closed, to provide childcare to the healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. Because the healthcare workers are not going to be sending their kids to the recs in order to reduce their own exposure for then taking care of patients. So while I think it was wise to have placed these recs in those locations to see whether or not you could advantage first responders and healthcare workers, I think what you're going to find over time is that they are going to choose other childcare alternatives. And I know that all of the hospitals, at least on the Upper East Side that we're in touch with, have come up with as many means as possible to find alternate childcare arrangements for their children.
Ushma, can you, just to clarify, you're saying that folks, because the healthcare providers don't want the transmission from a center to themselves and then to patients?
Correct. So they're doing, they're like following social and physical distancing to an extreme. I don't know that there's anything particularly published telling everyone don't send your kids to the recs, because they're part of all of the childcare resources that are sent out to all of us across the institution. At least speaking for Memorial Sloan Kettering, it is listed as one of the resources for childcare. However, it's maybe 4th or 5th on the list along the terms with every different alternative that we have, both based from Bright Horizons, deploying people specifically to people's homes, as well as now a network of 900 people who are no longer able to work in their labs, who are signing up to take care of the children of healthcare workers.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys, all right, yes, we are
Hey, Maud, I just had a quick question or a request for Donalda again for the food hubs. So I don't know about District 2, but in other districts, the signage on the sites has been less than ideal. So there are some schools with old signs from before we switched to the food hubs, and the food hub sites don't have clear signage on what door to go to or what to do when you get to the door. If there's any way you can make sure that food hubs have clear signs, and to the extent possible, if other schools have taken down their old signs from last week, I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, guys, we've had folks can, I don't want to ignore people who have posted stuff in the chat, but I guess everybody can read those themselves. Donalda, there is one thing that I'll ask you, written by Shelby, who says, what are the expectations for live classes? Was there a recommendation as to how much time a teacher should be live per day or weekly? It seems as though schools are doing whatever they think is best, not having specific direction. There isn't consistency throughout the schools. Was that something you were aiming for, the consistency throughout the schools, or are the individual school leaders developing their plans?
Anyways, great. Okay, Shelby, you are so correct. There is not a consistent standard right now. And one of the reasons is because we had to negotiate, I can't put myself as the we. I will say the Department of Education had to negotiate with labor unions around this, and the guidance around scheduling and the amount of time that a teacher would provide of lessons, live instruction, even the schedule that someone would follow through the day has been up for discussion for the past couple of weeks. And we are awaiting guidance on many of the finer points of that. And I think the inconsistency or the variance that you see through schools regarding, schools that are next door to one another, and sometimes even within schools, depending on the class and the teacher and their skillfulness with technology and the ease with which they videotape themselves or find online resources or construct tasks that are interactive varies. And so our goal is, of course, always to make sure that kids are getting the best that we have to offer at any given moment. And we're working on a continuous improvement model that takes schools, some of our schools distributed paper packets because they thought that that was the most effective way that they could consistently give kids access to curricula and learning activities when they presumed that we would be doing this for 2 or 3 weeks. those schools are now transitioned to online classrooms, and schools that already had online classrooms up and running even prior to this happening, who have had online classrooms for several years, are working on videotape lessons and and facilitating structured student groups, and teachers pushing in to those groups and helping out and having structuring tasks for kids that they can do independently at home or in small groups with their peers in an online medium. And so no matter where we are right now, which is day 4 of instruction, we will work every day to get to a level of quality and interactivity for kids that we know will boost their learning and make sure that they are prepared to meet grade level expectations at the end of this year and ready to go into school next year when it becomes live and in person again.
Okay, great. Thank you, Donalda, and thank you for the great questions. So let's move on in our agenda. President's report is next. This is going to be very, very brief because we've covered some of the things already. One of which was that in terms of the distribution for food, the grab and go meals, we already talked about that, but I did want to say, to reiterate the fact that if we need to get additional sites in District 2, that's a viable, option for us to be able to get the DOE to open additional sites. And I wanted to also say something I didn't say, I think when we discussed this previously, is a thank you to Patricia Larea, who did a lot of advocacy around getting this site at PS 11 up and running. So thank you, Patricia. So this is our new normal. It's pretty amazing. We're down to 84 participants, but we were up to 90 at some point. So I think people are going to adjust, and we're going to be able to continue to do the work that we as a CEC need to do in terms of advocacy. And as parents, I'm a parent. I have 2 middle schoolers and an elementary school student right now, and I will say that I am really extraordinarily impressed by the teachers, the principals, the staff for what they have gotten up and going. Is it perfect? No. If it was just a substitute for our schools, if they had decided this is how we're going to do school going forward, it's not enough. Both, as people have pointed out, not just on the academic front, but because of our kids' social needs. But given what mixed messages we got as a country and as a city so recently, and given what short time our teachers had to get these things going, I'm enormously impressed by what they've done. And I just want to say thank you to all of those teachers and administrators and principals for the amazing work that they've done. And if we're saying thank you, I think we also have to say thank you to doctors and nurses and the people that work in grocery stores, because who knew that those would be our frontline people, so soon. So let me say, between the time we met our last CEC meeting and this moment seems so long ago, but there are 2 CEC things that happened, 2 council things that happened that I would like to update you on. One is, I'll start with some good news. Some very, very passionate and engaged campaigning by parents on the Upper East Side has resulted in a dual language French universal pre-K center opening up on East 76th Street. And the families that wanted that worked very, very hard for that. They worked with both Donalda Chumney, our superintendent, Marisol Rosales, our executive superintendent, as well as council member Ben Kalos, who is really a good partner with this council in terms of pushing to get that dual language program established. And also Deputy Chancellor Josh Wallach helped us cross that last bridge to get this program started. And so thank you to all of those folks. The other thing that I wanted to mention is we had our first NYSIP meeting. It's the New York State Integration Project meeting. Our first, had several meetings, but we've had our first community engagement session for that pilot project. And it was, I think, very, very successful in terms of both the presentation that we had. We had 2 presentations, both from our council member, Shino Tanakawa, as well as Dr. Fergus, who gave us a lot of data and information about disproportionality, which is the lens through which we're looking at the integration work for District 2. They were both great presentations. Thank you to both of them. We also had a really, really good discussion about what we wanted to see as a district. That work took place in a very, very different environment than the one we're in right now. But I think it's fair to say that while, you know, we had a meeting scheduled for that team for this week, which has been postponed, I think we have so many questions about what our district will look like going forward that I'm not sure that the work in that project will look exactly the same as it would have. But I think all of that, that meeting, particularly that community engagement session, the things that came out of it can inform our new normal as we make the decisions about what we're going to have to do around admissions and schools particularly for our kids that will be transitioning into middle school and high school in September, because I think it's going to be a very rough transition for kids who haven't been in school since mid-March and who haven't had access to sort of consistent instruction. We know there's a summer slide, and when the summer slide is March to August, that's going to present all sorts of really difficult challenges for our students and for our educators. So that work will continue, but it will be part of, I think, a broader conversation about how to structure the year that's coming up. So I'm not sure what that will look like, but when we know and when that team meets again, probably in a meeting just like this, we'll update you as soon as we do know. So those are my two updates. And then we have committee reports. Do we have Ben Morden? Oh, sorry, Emily, you have a question. No, you're just waving at me. Okay. Let's go to, I don't think we have a zoning and capital committee update. Eric, is that true? We do not. And then we have the diversity committee and the screening committee did Ben, if you want to give that update, I see Ed is not on. I'm going to unmute you, Ben, and you can tell.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. So we had a very successful, I think, meeting. Over 100 people attended for Eliminate or Expand Education Forum. With moderator was Alina Adams, and we had the panelists were Ty Abrams, David Bloomfield, and Alyssa Brown. And it was a fantastic discussion, and we'll have a video hopefully up in a day or two, part of the CEC D2 YouTube site. I think it lasted for about an hour and a half, and they addressed a lot of questions that were presented were presented during the registration, and it covered a lot of topics with the G&T and specialized high schools, and I think that we can send out the links once it's up, and we should follow up with a feature update after all this is gone past. I've had some follow-up questions on since then about how the admissions process will work for next year with regards to screening and G&T programs and so forth. So I'm curious if maybe the superintendent can address that as well.
Well, that is a question I was anticipating she would get some of those questions, but we'll save that maybe let people ask some questions in the second public session, I think, Ben, if you're okay with that. And then if there are questions along that lines, we can ask her. She's off camera, but still here. Students with Disabilities Committee, Emily Hellstrom. Wait.
Yep.
There you go.
Am I unmuted? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I feel like, yes, it does feel like a year ago, but we did have what feels like the last public meeting on March 9th before the world turned upside down. But we had close to 90 people come out to the Clinton Auditorium. We were socially distanced at that point. We had chairs about 5 feet away from each other, thankfully. And we had a wonderful panel of State Senator Brad Hoylman, State Senator Robert Jackson, Assembly Member Joanne Simon, and Assembly Member Bobby Carroll, who spoke about 7 or so different bills that are up in Albany that are very, very important to students with disabilities, specifically students with dyslexia and other language-based learning disabilities, and the sort of comorbid conditions that go along with those, ADHD and other anxiety and self-esteem issues. So these bills would, if passed, and I know there's a lot of question as to how the session is going to continue and how we can be advocating that way. And I certainly intend to follow up with Senator Hoylman, but if you wanted to jump in and let us know things that we could do, or when we can sort of get back up and running, because we certainly had a lot of momentum and they had so many wonderful ideas about how to help these students.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that we have this very compressed legislative session. I think a lot would depend on the trajectory of the virus. If, the most optimistic predictions that, we're back in business, in a couple of months, it's possible that the session would resume in the summer or the fall, and we could pass some of these bills that Assembly Members Simon and Carroll and Senator Jackson and I carry. So I think we just don't know. I think it's very unlikely that we're going to do anything more in the budget other than what's been discussed, in terms of, some of those big items that you've been reading about in the news. So stay tuned. We'll continue to advocate for them. And your voices are going to be very important to make certain that this issue, which is now becoming, I think, a statewide recognition, that we just haven't done enough to assist students with these learning differences, and that the way we're teaching our kids to read has been incredibly deficient, not to mention the fact that children are not screened in their early years.
Great. So I think that, please, go to cecd2.net and send an email and say you'd like to be updated with news on this. And I intend to keep in touch with legislators and also council people to discuss how we can change both, basically both in the city and on the state level, because so many of these things are interconnected. But it was a wonderful evening, and we thank you for participating to everyone. So that happened, and that was really fantastic. And then, sort of the world turned upside down. One of the things that I've been trying to sort of just get my life in order to send out an email, and I apologize. Lots of questions and ideas, and Shino has been getting out some of that information. It's just been difficult for me to get organized. But one of the things that came across was with this stimulus package is the I Dea Act, which is a federal mandate that basically says that students with disabilities are mandated basically to get their services no matter what. And there was this idea that they could sort of put this on pause. And, obviously we wanted this stimulus package to go in. A lot of people made phone calls to their senators to make sure that this was not tampered with and put on pause, just because it does affect so many children. Obviously understanding one of the things that I've been sort of dealing with and why it's taken so long is it is extremely, extremely difficult to homeschool and virtually teach a child with dyslexia and ADHD. It's just you know, it's just a tremendously difficult thing to do. So, you know, video links and, you know, virtual school, you know, students with dyslexia, students with ADHD and anxiety, they need direct, explicit instruction from a teacher who knows how to teach them. It's hard to get that, you know, even at a regular school during the regular day. It's near impossible to do that from home. So I know that a lot of kudos go out to teachers and principals and to everyone across the district, but you know, just know that it is extremely difficult. So, you know, dealing with that, and I know I've been just hearing from other folks just at how tremendously challenging these times are. So,
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks.
Okay. So we're going to move on. The Bylaws Committee, which I'm on, definitely has no updates. And we also are not going to pass our minutes I haven't circulated the minutes from last month, which does feel like a million years ago. But we are going to have our second public session, and I have some questions by chat on the second public session. So I have a list, and I'm going to read out the whole list, and then we'll start. Marilyn, Patricia Larea, Chi Yun, and Shelby Sinelli. Sorry for any mispronunciations. Marilyn, where are you, Marilyn? Yvette, if you see Marilyn, unmute Marilyn. Oh, there you are.
Marilyn, you're unmuted.
Great.
Hi, how are you? Hello.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Hi. So I just had a question in regards to the regions. I know they haven't canceled them as of yet. I'm sure they're not going to be giving them, I would assume, but my daughter is very concerned in terms of prepping for the regions, and also if you guys have heard anything as to, you know, whether they anticipate it would be coming, you know, via, you know, they've done some exams. My son took an exam, the SSAT, with the proctor online. So I don't know if that's something that maybe the DOE is looking at.
I'm going to ask Donalda if she...
Maud, I can answer that too.
Okay,
if you'd
Michelle can take that one.
So currently all elementary and middle school state testing, including Regents, has been canceled for this school year. We're waiting to have the decision finalized on high school Regents, which would be for high school graduation.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
that's all,
so
all regions, correct?
Sorry, what was that, Marilyn?
I'm sorry, all regions, yes?
No, the decision, as we've seen, is elementary and middle school testing, which includes regions that middle schoolers would take, but we don't have the official decision on high school regions. My best guess is it's very likely it will be canceled, but as soon as we get that information, we will send it out to everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, because my daughter's having severe anxiety over the region. So.
Makes a lot of
Thank
sense.
You.
Patricia, let me, Michelle's fast.
I got it, yeah.
Than me. There you go, Patricia.
Okay.
Hi.
Patricia, you're
Hi. My question is along the same line of testing. I have a senior in high school, and he's got 2 AP exams. So are they still going to be testing with AP exams? And I also have other friends at other high schools that are worried about the SATs for the following school year. And we haven't had much guidance or notification regarding that. Those are my 2 questions. And also PTAs and PAs, I think the parent body should also do this a similar kind of a Zoom format to kind of get some of their queries out. I'm sure there's questions that I'm not able to ask that are out there for some parents, and I think the DOE, or I'm not sure who along that line, can maybe advocate for that.
Can I just chime in on that last thing that you mentioned. On behalf of the President's Council, I just want to say we've had some discussions because we understand also that this has greatly affected our parents' associations in our district. And a lot of auctions were canceled, things like that. And we've lost that sense of community. So we're going to be looking into to seeing how we can get those groups together, get in touch with the Parents Association presidents, and try to bring that community back together, because we are all in this together, and really figure out, you know, how to communicate and do things better. I'm really thrilled about this method that we're using tonight, because it shows that we really can, at least technologically, all connect on a certain level, but we have to do a better job, certainly in our community. But we're looking into that, certainly at the President's Council, in terms of getting the Parents Association's issues addressed, because those issues are still continuing. People have questions about admissions. All of that stuff is still up in the air, and there are changes that are coming down the pike. And certainly we want to discuss those changes. We want parents to be familiar with what's going on too. And we don't really have a way of connecting with parents right now. So, and those things are still coming. So I understand that point, but that's something that we're looking into. I just want to let you know that.
And Maud, I can address some of the issues that Patricia raised. So I'm on the exec board of the Baruch College Campus High School, and we had an executive board meeting today via Zoom, which was actually hugely useful. But the principal reported that there will be AP exams. They will be online, 45 minutes, and the materials covered will be through March. So there will be no new content. And the teachers at least Baruch are actually spending time doing review up to the content they covered until we close the school. So there will be AP exams. And the other thing that, sorry?
Let me just ask you though, is that a Baruch specific decision, or?
No, because we don't have a say over it. It's the college board. They don't want to refund money to the families who have to pay to sign up for AP exams, so they're going to go ahead with that. That's our assessment, but I'm pretty sure that it's citywide decision.
Okay.
Yeah, or the college board decision, I should say. Right. And the other thing is, we decided at the same exec board meeting today that we're going to try a PTA meeting next week. And if you have access to, well, I guess the DOE, if you can actually create Zoom accounts that the PTA can use, that would be actually a really good thing. We decided to have just a community meeting where parents can touch base with each other and hear from the community on how remote learning is working, that kind of stuff. So whatever help DOE can give in terms of allowing Zoom access, that would be helpful.
Michelle, I know that FACE is providing Zoom accounts for our education councils. Has there been any conversation within FACE about Zoom accounts for parent associations?
I believe the Chancellor's regulations through A660 for parent associations a little bit different in that they're public, only open to members of the school family, so parents within that school. So I think they're coming up with guidance on that soon, but it hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay. Thank you. So I feel a little bit like a late night radio host, but I'm going to say we're going to go to Chi Yun now. I'm going to unmute you.
Hi. Thanks so much for letting me ask my question. There's been some rumors that the academic school year will end early, possibly, around April 20th, or, will remote teaching continue if necessary till the end of June?
If anyone has information on that front, I have not heard a discussion about school ending early. I've heard different opinions about whether or not it will be possible or not to return to classrooms this year. I don't have inside knowledge in terms of what the DOE decision makers are making, but from folks who, it does seem that the broader opinion is that our kids will most likely not be in classrooms this school year, but whether or not that means the online classes will will end earlier. I haven't heard anything from the DOE. Michelle or Nalda, have you heard discussion?
Yeah, I can jump in. So I realized I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'm Michelle Chang. I work in the central office of the Department of Education in Family and Community Empowerment. For now, schools are closed through April 20th, as you all know. And I think there was a question I saw in the chat about spring break, if it's still being off. So, to my knowledge, that's still a week off for kids. And at this point, that's the only guidance we've received. As you know, with coronavirus, things are changing every day. And our hopes are to bring students back after spring break, but of course that depends on the development of the virus. If the school year continues remotely, so far I haven't heard anything differently from it continuing for the rest of the school year. Does that answer your question, Chion? Oh, she's on mute again. Let me unmute her. Okay. Mad.
Yeah, it does answer my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. We are going to move on to Shelby, and I will find you and unmute you. There we go, unmuted.
Hi, sorry, I'm just getting to my list of questions. I have a few questions. So what is what is your stance on, or the team stance on how the mayor, the DOE, and the chancellor handled the school closure? It just seemed to be a bit messy compared to how other big cities handle things. And when things become more regular or normal, is this something that we'll address with them? It just seems, who are the students' advocates here in regards to this?
So Shelby, I'll answer that by saying two things. One, our CEC, we had a town hall scheduled for March 10th with the chancellor, where the DOE anticipated a very, very large turnout. We made the decision to cancel that because we thought at that time that large gatherings would not make sense. So we were, our position, as we all learned, and some of us really had no expertise, have no expertise in this area, we tried to make the best decision that we could. And so and our CEC also put out a letter asking for school closure that very week, for all the reasons that we're now so familiar with. I'd also like to just take a moment here to say thank you to Ushma Neal, because she is the scientist on our council. Every council should have a scientist. And she was the person who really provided us with a lot of information about when we were asking questions as to whether or not we could safely hold a large meeting with hundreds of people, whether or not it was a good idea, whether or not it was irresponsible. And we certainly came down along the lines of deciding that it wasn't responsible, and we canceled that meeting. And so so thank you, Ushma, for your guidance on that and your leadership on that, because she was very clear about the fact that we needed to start socially isolating as early as possible. I don't speak on behalf of all the council members, but I don't think either now or anytime in the near future is going to be a great moment to say what we all should have done. I think as a nation, as a city, as an education department, hindsight being 2020, we all realize that this social isolating that we're doing now should have started earlier, but we have so much work to do to advocate for the students going forward, particularly how we're going to help the kids who are going to fall most behind with remote learning. I think that's what we as a CEC will most likely focus on.
Right. It just seemed, conflicting that the town hall was canceled, and it was canceled because we, shouldn't be meeting in large groups, but then we were asking parents to send their kids to school, which is obviously, a large gathering. That was my issue. It just seems as though going forward, there should be a lesson where we should be more prepared for something like this to happen, or to have a better game plan. That being said, to your point, so if we don't return to school by the end of the year, which is, a reality that could be facing, how will the educators decide who's meeting grade level versus those who are falling behind?
This is something that I asked Superintendent Chumney about earlier today, and what I understand from her is teachers and school leaders within our district, and I imagine within other districts, but I only asked her about our district, are convening a task force starting next week to answer some of those questions about how to answer the academic questions that are going to, questions just like that and others that are going to come up for the teachers in terms of student promotion and in terms of student achievement and student assessment.
Okay.
About how they're going to be able to grade students going forward, and all of those questions are really open questions for them right now, but they know they have to think through that and come up with some answers, and their task force is going to start next week.
Okay, great, thank you. The spring break question has been answered. Regarding PTAs, I didn't write this, but I just thought about it. I am a co-president of our school's PTA. So we should be having elections now. We should be confirming the budget for next year. How are we supposed to be handling that?
All right, Shelby, I am going to unmute Jennifer Greenblatt for this one because this is a question for Jennifer Greenblatt. Jennifer?
And I just wrote in the chat, I could answer that.
Yes.
So right now they're looking into how that will be handled in terms of both elections and the budget for next year. There's conversations going on. We need to see when information comes back about whether or not we will be going back to school. But my guess is that they will probably be elections that take place as an expedited election, which means no nominating committee, but nominations and the election take place on the same day. But guidance will be coming out of that shortly.
Okay, so we have an EB meeting tonight at 9 via Zoom. So I'll just tell everyone just to kind of hold off on that to, not push for the nominating committee, because we're going to do all of that online, but I guess we'll just hold off.
Hold off, and you can contact me, and I'm happy, to give you additional information as you need it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go to our student member, Violet, who I think was the way all good students do, raising her hand. So you're unmuted, Violet.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about some things that my peers have said about this and their concerns. I don't know if you can address this. Some seniors have actually talked about they don't know what's gonna happen with IB testing, since I go to an IB school, and also juniors, which is my grade, they want to know what's their summer gonna be like with Corona, and also how are they gonna be prepared for college, because since so many SATs were canceled, they don't know if they'll have the time to take SATs. Those are just some questions. How the SAT will be affected. Yeah. IB testing and SAT.
Right.
Mostly.
IB and SAT are, our account, we should probably, Violet, maybe you can help us write for our council those questions specifically, because Vivian Orlin is the superintendent of high schools. We need to address the high school questions really up to the high school folks, because those are going to be, those questions are really significant for high school students, and I don't think there are answers for any of them yet, but we have to, I think formulating the questions well is the first step, and then maybe we can work on figuring out, who are the people that are going to be providing that answers to get them to students as fast as possible.
Yeah, that would be great. To find a way that students could communicate to teachers or something, because I feel a lot of my friends feel very lost, and they want it. It's they don't want to have to email their teachers to get the answers. I guess they want a different type of outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do any of the other council members have any suggestions for Violet?
Tunisia does.
Okay, let me, I'm gonna go to you, and then we're gonna go back to our chat list. Sorry, Tanisha, wait, can you start over, Tanisha? Tanisha, we can't hear you. I've unmuted you, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm a post-secondary counselor, so we're getting this information day by day. And to answer some of the questions, so as of right now, the College Board is still allowing students to register for June, even though that could possibly be canceled the way the other exams were canceled. As for the AP exams, I can put in the link for people to go into, but what College Board said to us is that they're investing in new at-home testing options that give students the option of taking the exam earlier or at a later date. And they'll be sending out additional and full exam schedule testing details by April 3rd for the AP exams, because a couple people asked about that. And if you speak to the AP teachers in your school, we've all received information about what parts of the test that they'll be taking for each exam. And as for the, I said what you wanted to say, right, Violet, about the SAT? It's still possible to register for June, and you'll still be able to register for October once that pops up. And then the other part is, if you're interested in knowing about pushing, like which schools have pushed back their deadlines, because that changes every day. CUNY, SUNY, and the privates are still working on it. But if you really want to see the updated list, you'll either go to the New York State ACAC, which continues to update that list, or the NACAC, the NACAC, we call it, the National Association for College Admissions Counseling, and they are keeping they're updating the list, and they're constantly talking to the colleges about their change of decision day deadline.
That's the National Association for?
The National Association for College Admissions Counseling.
Okay, cool.
And you should be able to reach out to your post-secondary counselor in your school to go over this. So this is something that I'm doing in my class, my college class with my juniors right now.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tanisha. All right, I'm going to go back. Dr. Darius Sawaslak. I'm sure that's wrong, but there you go. That was my best effort.
All right. Hello, good evening. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, excellent. So I'm a member of CCELL. So at this moment, I have one question regarding the non-English speaking parents or students who are English language learners. So current model, it's very hard for parents who not speak in English and can't properly teach students, kids English if they don't know this English well, or don't even know at all. So that's why I think in this model, I would like to suggest just more time to spend with the kids, with the student by the teacher, especially for English language learners, because home language, definitely parents can work, and this is no problem. And second thing, provide more also audiovisual materials, not only just text, especially for younger kids, because they still can't use devices. The parents need to be all the time with them. If it's one kid, it's okay, but if it's two, it's worse. If it's five, it's impossible. So that's why I think we need to consider and invite our teachers to spend more time. The kids could work in the groups, but still with the managing of the teacher. Second thing is I need to go back to my question regarding rezoning between zone 2 and 3. I asked council members and also to consider because here at 57, 58, 54 streets, the coming towers, and I see that the school 191 is pretty empty. And that's why maybe we should reconsider to zoning this border to be close to the District 3 and District 6 council members borders, because right now from Street 57, we need to go, for example, with any question to somebody, to different councilmen, to Mr. Rosarius, and generally, I mean, the Helen Rosenthal, and then it's not the same district, the school district and the council district. So it would be good to, you know, just be on these few streets, you know, on the same page.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we all live in a lot of different zones. We have school zones, city council zones, assembly member zones, state senator districts. So there are quite a lot of zones that we live in. I'm going to ask, because it's 8:15, I want to get through some of the other questions for people if we can get answers to them. I don't know that there's a specific answer to that question about the complicated overlap of zones, but I do think, Michelle, you might want to I'm going to read a question that was posted on chat. Could you address how the cancellation of state ELA and math testing will impact entrance processes for high school as well? Has there been any additional guidance, Michelle, about how the high schools will handle the cancellation of the testing?
At this time, I don't have information about, you know, how they're going to rework rubrics or admissions processes, only that for elementary and for middle, state testing has been canceled. Once I have more information, I'll definitely share it with Yvette, who can then share it with your listserv.
Okay, I don't want to miss any speakers. Go down. Also a question from our council member, Ben Morden. Ben, do you want me to read it out? It's, are there any plans to provide additional remote learning enrichment opportunities during spring break for students in obvious circumstances likely remain homebound? I've had parents contact me because they're concerned that students could benefit from instructional opportunities over the break. Michelle, have you heard any? I've not heard. My understanding is that it will just be a vacation as it would have been had we been in school regularly. But Michelle, have you heard anything else?
Yes, so I shared a link there. It will be a vacation, but I did share a link with some resources. If you click that link in the chat and scroll down to activities for students, they have them by grade level, by subject level. And I didn't go through all of it, but I just tried second grade ELA, and there's 10 days worth of like additional lessons you can have with your child if you would like to use that over spring break.
Okay, fantastic. Also, we have a question about whether the middle school offers are still on target to be received in April. My understanding is yes. Michelle, have you heard anything otherwise?
I have not.
Okay, so what I have heard from enrollment is that yes, they will still be coming forth in April. And Tunisia, thank you for posting the link in terms of AP and College Board. I appreciate that. And we have a suggestion that Khan Academy has been good for some folks who have used that. Okay, this is our second public session. Last call on second public session. Is there anyone who wants to say something that has not had the opportunity to do so? Seeing no hands and seeing no chats, I don't want to miss anything. So if anyone sees anything else.
Ma, just for a second, I'm going to unmute all in case someone joined on the phone and they're not able to indicate on the chat. So I'll let it go for like 10 seconds and then we can go back to muting.
Personal experience with my kids, I just think that you always have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they understand a lot more than they ever understand. The problem is, we're older.
Sorry, so I just had to mute everyone again because I actually don't think that was effective unless, Ma, did you hear from anybody?
No, I heard a lot. It sounded a little like the Zoom that my 3-year-old's nursery school does. But I think
I do see a hand though. I see a hand from Shannon, so I'm going to unmute her. If that's okay.
Great.
Okay. Shannon, oh, hold on. Oops.
I just think it would be helpful, if possible, to get guidance around when the kindergarten admissions will be coming out and G&T, since schools will need to be prepared to either virtually host them or to assign volunteers to take all the questions. The parent liaison at each school and the PTA tend to get inundated with questions around that time. So it'd be really helpful to have better guidance around when those decisions will be released, so that way we can assign people and help support a parent coordinator and the PTA boards as well.
Yes, I suspect that, I don't know, but I suspect it will get pushed back, because I know even before our schools were closed, the universal pre-K deadline for registering was already pushed back, was extended, I should say. So the normal, what often happens with some of those deadlines is they get extended. And so it seems very likely that they'll be further extended. But yes, it'll be for the parent coordinators who normally field all of those questions, they're going to need some support. That's a very good point. I see another, Patricia Larea is asking for clarification on how the waitlist works for high school matches. Michelle, do you have any additional information on, Michelle or Jennifer Greenblatt, do you have any additional information on high school wait lists?
I do not at the time, but I'm noting this, and Patricia, I will follow up with the Office of Enrollment and get back to you.
I could give you some information.
Okay.
So as most people know, high school offers did go out. I've heard from a number of people. If you are given an offer to a school that is lower than, let's say, your first and second offer, let's say you're given your third, you will be on a wait list for 1 and 2. And you can see that wait list in your account itself. And that wait list will change as students accept or decline their offers. So you could move up that wait list. And you should be getting it in real time. Is there a particular question Patricia had?
No, that you clarified it, because someone was asking me what the next steps were, and I didn't know that they can see it real time in that schools. Is it the school's account?
Yes.
Where do they see it?
In the school's account.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think we have all the questions that came up in chat. If I'm, wait, Dr. Zawislak still has some questions about zoning. I don't think, since I'll tell you that the CECs do have sort of a statutory role in zoning with regard to our schools, so elementary schools that are zoned, and that is a role and a function of the CEC that's defined by state law, by our chancellor's regs, but we do not have a role to play in the districting of our overall school districts, other than perhaps advocacy, but we don't have a specific role in terms of redrawing those lines. I'm going to go to our student member, Violet, because she has, are you going to speak, Violet?
Yeah, I just have one thing to say. I don't know if you can do anything with this, but I have like a group of people at school that want to contact my elementary school and try to help basically students teaching students. So like people in my elementary school that are like maybe don't have parents at home that can help them, or are like we haven't actually contacted the school yet, we're going to do that today, but like that don't have parents that can help them, or like are just like struggling in general, they could Zoom call like specific students that are older and they could like help them. And I wanted to, like, I don't know if like you could do anything with that, or like maybe contact some high schools so they got that idea, so it could be more like have a greater effect.
a mentorship program of high school students to younger students?
Yeah, just like, I don't know. It was just an idea. Like if like students couldn't, like if their parents couldn't help them, because I know like my parents are working all day and my sister's been like really struggling. So I've been having to teach her a lot, and she's 8, you know? So like, I don't know, just an idea.
I think it's a fantastic idea. And I'll say one thing that makes it more possible to implement, if it's something that we can help to implement, is the fact that they have relaxed some of the regulations around privacy. I know, you know, in my own house, we have normally, if your kid receives any services, if your student receives any services, sometimes that happens for the child alone, and sometimes it happens with other children. And normally, you know, they don't even tell you the name of the other child who might be receiving services at the same time as your child for privacy reasons. But if you're doing it over Zoom, you see everybody, and your kid is being boomed into, you know, other people's living room and vice versa. So because they've had to relax some of those privacy standards, if people were interested in signing up for some kind of remote tutoring like that, it seems like now there might be the opportunity to do stuff like that. Yeah. So I'd be happy to follow up with you about that and see if we could, you know, pilot something in one of the schools.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, Tom Rockledge is asking, why have middle school placement been delayed? I thought they had always said middle schools, Tom, I thought they'd said that the middle schools would be announced in April. No?
I thought it was late March originally. Is that wrong?
It was late March. It's about a week late.
So we use an algorithm now. It goes through a computer. What is going on?
Well,
I mean, really, I mean, did the computer get a virus too?
I think this is what's going on. They've had their hands full.
It should have been done in January, to be honest.
But Tom, this is not unique to this year. They often get pushed back, all the different notifications.
Fair, but this year we have a new process, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to me, it seemed like a good process. And now it's, you know, it's being dragged out and without explanation.
Well, high school notifications did come out when they said they would, one day earlier, in fact.
Right, but middle school admissions did not, and that's the genesis of my question here.
Yeah. This is one area where I think we might want to cut the DOE a little slack, although all of us collectively are good at not doing that sometimes on other issues.
I guess. All right. But I mean, if there is an explanation, I'd like to hear it.
I'll try to find out for you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, guys, it is 8:27. We're all a lot speedier on Zoom than we are in person because our meetings usually go much longer in person. To the council members, does anyone have anything to share in response to some of the questions, or anything that you'd like to add as we wrap up? Other than noises. All right. Thank you to everybody who joined us this evening.
Sadie put a wall collage up where she we went to Grand Central yesterday.
Robin, are you talking?
Yeah, to go to Hudson News or whatever, and got her some fashion magazines, and she cut out some pictures that she thought were beautiful. They were open. I know.
Not talking to us. Can we mute Robin? Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's our sign, guys. That's our sign that the meeting is over. Thank you all very much. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maud.
All right, bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.